She pretended to be poor and naive to infiltrate the most dangerous crime family in the city, and it turned out that the mafia boss she was investigating had been pretending too, pretending he didn't recognize her from the first moment they met. My name is Dr. Harper Wells, and I'm a forensic psychologist who specializes in criminal behavior profiles for the FBI. For 3 years, I'd been building a case against the Constantine organization, trying to understand how they operated, how they recruited, how they maintained loyalty. Traditional surveillance had failed. Undercover agents had been identified and removed. So I proposed something radical. Go in as myself, but stripped of everything that made me recognizable as a threat. No designer clothes, no confident demeanor, no sharp analysis. Just Harper, a struggling graduate student working 3 jobs to make ends meet, naive enough to believe that tutoring the boss's teenage sister in psychology was just a tutoring job. What I didn't expect was Victor Constantine himself, the man I'd studied for years through surveillance photos and criminal profiles. The dangerous, calculating leader of an empire built on activities I was supposed to help dismantle. And I definitely didn't expect him to look at me during our first meeting and say quietly, just loud enough for me to hear, "I know exactly who you are, Dr. Wells, but I'm curious to see how far you'll take this." That was 6 months ago, and everything that's happened since has shattered every assumption I had about criminals, redemption, and the dangerous line between investigation and involvement. The first time I met the Constantine family, I was wearing clothes from a thrift store and carrying a backpack that had seen better days. I'd practiced my cover story for weeks, struggling grad student, mountains of debt, desperate for any income. It wasn't entirely false. I had been that person once, before the FBI recruited me. Victor's sister, Anastasia, was 17 and brilliant. She'd requested a psychology tutor to help with her college applications, and I'd been carefully positioned as the perfect candidate, young enough to seem relatable, knowledgeable enough to be useful, broke enough to seem harmless. The Constantine estate was exactly what I'd expected, imposing, heavily secured, the kind of place where everyone was watching everyone else. I was escorted through marble hallways by stone-faced security until I reached a sitting room where Anastasia waited. She was sharp-eyed and suspicious immediately. "You're the tutor?" She looked me up and down, clearly unimpressed by my carefully curated appearance of poverty. "Harper Wells." I kept my voice soft, slightly uncertain, playing the role. "Thank you for this opportunity. I really need the work. Everyone needs work." A voice came from the doorway, deep, controlled, dangerously intelligent. I turned, and there he was, Victor Constantine, 32 years old. Took over his family's organization at 25 when his father was killed. Known for being ruthless, strategic, and impossible to predict. He was taller than I'd expected. The surveillance photos hadn't captured the intensity of his presence, or the way he looked at me like he was solving a puzzle. "My sister is very particular about her education." He moved into the room, and I forced myself not to react to how closely he studied me. "I hope you're qualified, Miss Wells." "I have my master's in psychology and I'm working toward my doctorate." I said it with just enough pride mixed with defensiveness, like someone who was educated but struggling. "I've tutored for 3 years. Psychology." His eyes never left my face. "Interesting field. What made you choose it?" This was a test. I could feel it. I wanted to understand why people make the choices they make. I kept my voice earnest, naive. Why someone becomes who they become. Whether people can really change or if they're defined by their circumstances. Something flickered in his expression. Amusement? Recognition? Deep questions for a tutor. He smiled slightly. "Anastasia, I'll leave you to your lesson. Miss Wells, welcome to our home. I hope you find your time here educational." The way he said that last word made my skin prickle. Like he was speaking in code. Like he knew something I didn't. After he left, Anastasia relaxed slightly. "My brother is intense," she said apologetically. "But he's protective. Ever since our father died, he's been paranoid about everyone who comes into our house." "I understand." I pulled out textbooks, sliding into my role. "Shall we start with cognitive behavioral theory?" The first month was careful. I tutored Anastasia 3 times a week, always staying in character. The struggling student who was grateful for the income, who was impressed by their wealth but not intimidated by it, who asked simple questions and made naive observations. But I was watching, learning, documenting everything I could about how the family operated, who came and went, what patterns emerged, building the profile I'd been sent to create. Victor was there often. He'd appear during lessons, asking questions about psychology that seemed casual but weren't, testing me, watching how I responded. "Tell me, Miss Wells," he said one afternoon, interrupting a lesson on moral development. "Do Do you believe people are inherently good or bad? Or are we all just products of our environment? It was a trap. I could feel it, but I couldn't figure out what kind. I think people are complicated. I answered carefully, staying in character. I think circumstances shape us, but we still make choices. Good people can do bad things. Bad people can do good things. It's all about what we choose to become. And if someone is born into a life where bad things are expected, his voice was quiet. Where doing good means betraying everything they were raised to value. What then? Then they have to decide what matters more. I met his eyes, forgetting for a moment to be naive. Legacy or conscience. Who they're supposed to be versus who they actually are. The intensity in his gaze shifted, like I'd said something that mattered. Interesting perspective, he said finally, for someone so young and idealistic. That night, my FBI handler called for an update. How's the infiltration progressing? Agent Morrison asked. Are you gathering useful intelligence? Yes, I said carefully, but there's something off. Victor Constantine isn't what I expected. He's more complicated than the profile suggested. Don't get sympathetic, Wells. Morrison's voice was sharp. He's a criminal. He's dangerous. Remember why you're there? I know why I'm there, I said. I'm just saying the reality is more nuanced than we thought. Nuance doesn't matter. We need evidence. Stay focused. But staying focused was becoming harder. Because the more time I spent with the Constantine family, the less they fit the neat categories I'd built. Anastasia was brilliant and kind, volunteering at shelters and genuinely caring about making the world better. Their mother, Elena, was elegant and fierce, protecting her children with a determination that seemed more maternal than criminal. And Victor was a contradiction I couldn't solve. 2 months into my infiltration, everything shifted. I was leaving after a tutoring session when Victor intercepted me in the hallway. Walk with me. It wasn't a request. He led me through the estate to a private study I'd never seen before. Once inside, he closed the door and turned to face me with an expression that made my heart race. I think we should stop pretending, he said quietly. Don't you, Dr. Wells? My blood turned to ice. I don't know what you mean. I tried to maintain the cover. I'm just a forensic psychologist with the FBI who's been building a profile on my organization for 3 years. He cut me off. You're very good. I'll give you that. The struggling student persona is convincing, but I knew who you were the moment you walked into my home. I calculated escape routes, assessed threats, prepared for the worst. If you knew, why didn't you? Because I wanted to see what you'd do. He moved closer, and I forced myself not to back away. I wanted to understand why the FBI would send someone as talented as you undercover, what they hope to achieve, what you hope to discover. You're going to kill me. I said it flatly, not a question. No, he said simply. I'm going to offer you something far more interesting. The truth. Complete transparency about my organization, my operations, my plans, everything you've been trying to discover, in exchange for one thing. What? Your honest assessment. He met my eyes. Not as an agent, not as an investigator, but as a psychologist. I want you to tell me if what I'm trying to do is possible, if someone like me can actually become someone different. I stared at him, trying to process. You're trying to leave, I said slowly, pieces clicking together. That's what this is about. You're trying to get out of organized crime. I've been trying to leave for 3 years, he said quietly. Since the day I inherited this empire, I never wanted it, never chose it. But suddenly I was responsible for hundreds of people and operations I barely understood, and everyone expected me to be my father, to be ruthless and cold and willing to do anything to maintain power. So why not just walk away? Because it's not that simple. He turned to look out the window. I have a sister who needs protection, a mother who depends on the resources this organization provides, employees, legitimate and otherwise, whose families depend on the income. I can't just abandon them, but I've been trying to transition everything. Convert illegal operations to legitimate businesses. Create legal employment for everyone who wants it. Get completely out. Why are you telling me this? Because I've read your work. He turned back to me. Your research on criminal reformation, on whether people born into crime can successfully transition to legitimate life. I've read everything you've published, and I think you might be the only person who can tell me if what I'm trying to do is actually possible or if I'm deluding myself. If you're hooked on this story already, don't forget to like this video right now. Drop a comment telling me if Harper should believe Victor or assume this is manipulation. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what happens when these two stop pretending. Hit that notification bell. I should have left immediately, called my handler, reported everything. But instead, I heard myself say, Show me what you've been doing. Then I'll tell you if it's possible. Over the next week, Victor did exactly that. He showed me financial records proving systematic conversion of illegal operations to legitimate businesses, documented transition plans for employees, evidence of 3 years of careful, strategic movement toward complete legitimacy. This restaurant chain, he explained one evening in his study, started as money laundering. Now it's completely clean, profitable independently, employing 200 people legally. That's the model I'm trying to replicate everywhere. Why? I asked. Why go through all this effort when staying in crime would be easier and more profitable? Because I hate who I've become, he said simply. I look in the mirror and see my father, someone I swore I'd never be, someone ruthless and cold who values power over people. I don't want to be that person, but I don't know if I can be anyone else. That's what you want from me. I understood. Professional assessment of whether you're capable of genuine change. Yes. He met my eyes. And I'll be completely honest with you. Show you everything. Answer any question. Give you total transparency. In exchange for your genuine professional opinion. Can someone like me actually become someone different? I thought about all my training. All the rules about maintaining distance. About not getting involved. About remembering that criminals manipulate. Then I thought about 3 years of research into exactly this question. About whether people could truly change. Okay, I said. Complete honesty. You show me everything about your organization and your transition plan. I'll give you a genuine psychological assessment of whether transformation is possible for you. But I need full access. No more secrets. No more games. Deal. He extended his hand. I shook it, knowing I was crossing a line I couldn't uncross. Knowing my handler would see this as betrayal. Knowing I was risking everything. But also knowing this was the most fascinating case I'd ever encountered. Before we continue, I need to ask you something. Where are you watching this story from? What country? Drop your location in the comments right now. And tell me, is Harper making a huge mistake trusting Victor, or is this the opportunity of a lifetime? If you want more stories with undercover operations, dangerous criminals trying to reform, and the blurred lines between investigation and involvement, you absolutely must subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Turn on all notifications so you never miss when I drop a new story. Seriously, subscribe right now, then let's get back to Harper and Victor. Over the next 3 months, Victor gave me unprecedented access to his world. Not the sanitized version, the real version. The legitimate businesses he was building and the illegal operations he was still trying to unwind. The people who supported his transition and the people who resisted it. The complications, the setbacks, the moral compromises he still had to make. I documented everything. Not for the FBI anymore. I'd stopped reporting after that first conversation with Victor. A decision that probably ended my career but felt necessary. But for the psychological case study this was becoming. This operation. I pointed to financial documents one evening. You said you'd shut it down 6 months ago. Why is it still running? Because 50 people work there. Victor's frustration showed. And I haven't secured legitimate employment for all of them yet. If I shut it down now, those families lose their income. So you're continuing illegal activity to protect employees? I challenged. That's the same rationalization criminals have used forever. At some point, you have to accept that transitioning means some people will be uncomfortable. You can't save everyone. I know. He rubbed his face tiredly, But where's the line? How many people am I allowed to hurt in pursuit of becoming better? When does the collateral damage outweigh the transformation? That's the question, isn't it? I said quietly. Whether the ends justify the means. Whether becoming good requires doing bad things. There's no easy answer. What would you do? He looked at me intently. If you were in my position, if you had to choose between ethics and practicality, I'd make the ethical choice and deal with the consequences. I said honestly, because that's who I want to be. Someone who values principles over convenience. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And if the consequences hurt innocent people, then you find ways to help them that don't involve continuing criminal activity. Severance packages, job training, connections to legitimate employment. You don't get to use concern for others as an excuse to avoid hard choices. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. You're right. I've been using them as an excuse to move slowly, to avoid the hardest decisions. He pulled out his phone. I'm shutting it down. Tonight. And I'll make sure everyone affected has resources to transition. But you're right. I can't keep using concern for others as justification for staying in a life I hate. I watched him make the calls, watched him actually do it, and realized something that both excited and terrified me. I was having an effect on him. My presence, my assessments, My challenges were actually changing his decisions, which meant I was no longer just observing. I was participating, influencing, becoming part of the transformation rather than just documenting it. My professional objectivity was completely compromised. 4 months into this arrangement, Victor's mother confronted me. Elena Constantine was formidable, beautiful and sharp, and protective of her children in a way that transcended any criminal association. "You're not really a struggling graduate student," she said when she found me alone in the library. "I've known since the beginning, but Victor asked me not to interfere, so I haven't. Until now." "Why now?" "Because I see how he looks at you." She moved closer. "And I see how you look at him. This stopped being professional months ago, for both of you, and I need to know if you're going to destroy him or help him." "I'm trying to help him," I said honestly. "He's genuinely trying to change, to get out, to become someone different. My job is to assess if that's possible and help him do it correctly." "And personally?" Her eyes were sharp. "What do you feel about my son?" I thought about lying, about maintaining professional distance, but something in her expression demanded honesty. "I'm falling for him," I admitted, which is completely inappropriate and probably disqualifies me from giving objective assessment. But it's true. The more time I spend with him, the more I see someone genuinely trying to be better. And I respect that, admire it, maybe more than I should. "Good." Elena surprised me, because he needs someone who sees who he's trying to become, not just who he was. Someone who challenges him instead of enabling him. Someone who makes him want to be worthy of their respect. "You're not worried I'll betray him?" I asked. "Turn him into authorities? Use everything I've learned against him?" "You could have done that months ago," she pointed out. "But you didn't, which tells me you see what I see. My son isn't his father. He never was. He's been fighting to be different since the day he inherited this burden. And you make him brave enough to actually do it." That conversation changed things, because it forced me to admit what I'd been avoiding, that this had stopped being about investigation or psychology, or even redemption. It had become personal. 5 months in, Victor and I stopped pretending there was anything professional about our relationship. It happened late one night after a particularly difficult day. An operation had collapsed. People had been hurt. Victor had been forced to make decisions he hated, and the weight of it was crushing him. I found him in his study, staring at financial documents like they held answers. "I'm failing," he said without looking up. "Every step forward seems to create 2 steps backward. Every time I close an illegal operation, someone gets hurt or retaliates or something goes wrong. Maybe I'm not capable of this. Maybe I'm just my father's son and that's all I'll ever be." That's exhaustion talking. I sat beside him, not reality. "Victor, you've converted 60% of your operations to legitimate business in 3 years. That's extraordinary progress. Most people born into what you were born into never even try to change. You're actually doing it. At what cost?" He looked at me, and the pain in his eyes was real. "How many people have been hurt because I'm trying to be something I'm not? How much damage am I doing in pursuit of becoming better?" "Less damage than you'd do by staying who you were," I said firmly. "Yes, transition is messy. Yes, people get hurt. But the alternative is continuing to be part of an organization that hurts people systematically. You're not perfect, but you're trying. And that matters. Does it?" His voice was quiet. "When I look at you, I see everything I want to be. Someone good. Someone who helps people instead of hurting them. Someone who builds instead of destroys. And I wonder if I'm capable of ever actually becoming that. Or if I'm just pretending." "You're not pretending." I took his hand. "I've spent 5 months watching you, analyzing your decisions, assessing your psychology. And Victor, you're not your father. You never were. You're someone who inherited an impossible situation and has been fighting to become something better despite every obstacle. That's not pretending. That's courage. Harper." He looked at our joined hands. "We need to talk about what this has become, because it's not professional anymore. It hasn't been for months." "I know," I admitted. "I'm completely compromised. Everything I tell you is biased by the fact that I'm falling in love with you, which disqualifies me from giving objective psychological assessment." "You're in love with me?" He said it like he couldn't believe it. "I shouldn't be. It's inappropriate, unprofessional, probably grounds for losing my license." I met his eyes. "But yes, I'm in love with you. With who you are, who you're trying to become, your struggle, your determination, your refusal to give up even when everything's against you. I love all of it." He kissed me then, pulled me close and kissed me like I was the answer to every question he'd been asking, like I was hope and possibility and everything good he'd been trying to reach. And I kissed him back, knowing I was making a choice I couldn't take back, knowing I was choosing him over my career, my investigation, everything I'd been trained to value. but also knowing it was right, that this was real, that sometimes the most important truths aren't found through investigation, but through connection. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. "What do we do now?" he asked quietly. "Where do we go from here?" "You keep transitioning out," I said. "Keep building legitimate businesses. Keep choosing ethics over profit. Keep becoming the person you want to be. And I'll be here, supporting you, challenging you, refusing to let you make excuses or give up, as your psychologist and your partner and whatever else we become." "The FBI will probably arrest me when they find out I've been compromised," I admitted. "But Victor, I don't care, because what you're doing here, this transformation, it's more important than my career. This is the work that actually matters, helping someone genuinely change instead of just documenting criminal behavior. I love you." He said it simply. I didn't think I was capable of loving anyone. Thought that part of me died when I became my father's heir. But you proved me wrong. You make me believe I can be better, be worthy of you. And I'll spend every day trying to prove that your faith isn't misplaced. You already are worthy. I touched his face. You just need to believe it. Now come on. We have work to do. That transition isn't going to complete itself. If you're still hooked on Harper and Victor's story, drop a like right now. Let me know in the comments if you think they can actually make this work. And make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you don't miss what happens as Victor completes his transformation. The next year was challenging. Victor accelerated his transition, pushing harder to convert operations and get completely out. I was there for all of it, providing psychological support and assessment while also being his partner. The FBI eventually discovered I'd been compromised. Agent Morrison showed up at the estate 7 months into my relationship with Victor, his expression a mixture of disappointment and fury. "You've crossed every line," he said when we met in Victor's study. "Compromised an active investigation. Failed to report critical intelligence. Engaged in a relationship with your target. Dr. Wells, you're finished. Your career is over. Your license will be suspended. You'll be lucky if you're not prosecuted." "I understand," I said calmly. "And I accept the consequences. But Agent Morrison, what Victor is doing here is more important than any investigation. He's proving that people can fundamentally change. That reformation is possible. That's the work that actually matters. He's a criminal." Morrison's voice was hard. "He's manipulated you, used your feelings against you, made you believe this fairy tale about transformation so you'd protect him instead of doing your job." "No." Victor spoke for the first time. "I didn't manipulate her. I told her the truth, showed her everything, gave her complete transparency, and she made her own choices based on the evidence. If anyone's been manipulated, it's been me. She's made me want to be better, made me believe I could be someone different. That's not manipulation. That's genuine influence. Save it for your lawyer." Morrison turned back to me. "You have 24 hours to collect your things and return to headquarters. After that, you're suspended pending full investigation. And Dr. Wells, I'm disappointed. You were one of our best, and you threw it all away for a criminal." After he left, I sat heavily, the weight of what I'd lost finally hitting me. "I'm sorry," Victor said quietly. "This is my fault. I should have." "Don't." I cut him off. "I made my choices, knew the consequences, and I don't regret them. Yes, losing my career hurts. But helping you become who you're meant to be, that's worth it. Is it?" He knelt in front of me. "Is it really worth sacrificing everything you've worked for?" "Yes." I met his eyes. "Because this is the work that matters. Not building cases or documenting crimes, but actually helping people transform, making real differences. You've proven that's possible, and I got to be part of it. That's worth any career. What will you do now?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Find a new path. Figure out how to use my training to help people without the FBI. Maybe work with others trying to leave organized crime. Build something new. Do it here," he said. "Work with me. Help me build programs to support people transitioning out. Use your expertise to create systems that actually work. We could do this together. Make a real difference." "You want me to stay?" I was surprised. "Even though being with me cost you any chance at negotiating immunity? Even though the FBI will be watching you more closely now? Even though I'm a liability?" "You're not a liability." He took my hands. "You're the reason I've made it this far. The reason I keep pushing when everything seems impossible. The reason I believe I can actually become someone different. I need you, Harper. Not just personally, professionally. Your insight, your challenges, your refusal to let me make excuses. Stay. Help me finish this transformation. Then we'll build something new together." I looked at this man who'd become everything to me, who'd proven that change was possible through sheer determination and willingness to sacrifice everything for ethics. "Okay," I said. I'll stay. We'll finish your transition together. Then we'll build programs to help others do the same. Make something good out of everything we've been through. Thank you. He pulled me close. For not giving up on me. For choosing this despite the cost. For being exactly what I needed, even when it meant losing everything else. You're worth it, I said simply. Now let's finish what we started. The FBI investigation was brutal. I was questioned repeatedly. My license was suspended. My reputation in the forensic psychology community was destroyed. Former colleagues refused to speak to me. Academic journals rejected papers I'd spent years developing. But through it all, Victor was there, supporting me, reminding me why I'd made these choices, showing me that the work we were doing mattered more than professional recognition. 18 months after I'd begun my infiltration, Victor was 90% legitimate. Most operations converted. Most people transitioned to legal employment. Real measurable progress toward complete legitimacy. But there were still complications. A cousin, Dmitri, had been openly hostile to the transition from the beginning. He ran several of the remaining illegal operations and had been resisting conversion for months. One night, Dmitri confronted Victor in his study while I was there reviewing transition plans. "You're destroying everything Father built." Dmitri's anger was palpable. "Throwing away an empire for what? To impress some woman? To pretend you're something you're not? I'm becoming who I should have been all along." Victor's voice was calm. "Someone who builds instead of destroys. Someone who helps people instead of hurting them. And yes, Harper is part of that. But this transformation started before her. She just made me brave enough to finish it." "You're weak," Dmitri spat. "Father would be ashamed. You're betraying everything he stood for." "Good." Victor met his eyes. "Because Father stood for things I don't want to perpetuate. Violence, exploitation, valuing power over people. That's not who I am. And if you can't accept this transition, Dmitri, then you need to find somewhere else to work. Because in 6 months, every operation will be completely legitimate, no exceptions. You can't force me out. I can, and I will." Victor's voice was steel. "You have 6 months to transition to legitimate employment or find work elsewhere. That's not negotiable." After Dmitri left, Victor looked exhausted. "He's going to cause problems," I said quietly. "Fight this every step of the way." "I know." Victor sat heavily. "But I can't let family loyalty keep me trapped in a life I hate. At some point, ethics have to matter more than family expectations. I'm proud of you." I touched his shoulder. "For making the hard choice. For refusing to compromise just because it's easier. I learned from you." He pulled me into his lap. "You've never let me take the easy path. Never let me use family or loyalty or concern for others as an excuse. You've pushed me to make the right choices even when they're painful. That's made all the difference. We make a good team," I said against his chest. "The best team," he agreed. "Now let's figure out how to handle Dmitri without creating more problems." 2 years after my infiltration began, Victor was completely legitimate. Every operation legal, every business clean, every connection to his criminal past severed except the family name and the memories. The transformation had been completed ahead of schedule, and the cost had been enormous. Family members who'd refused to transition had left. Relationships had been destroyed. The organization Victor inherited looked nothing like what his father had built, but it was clean, legitimate, something he could actually be proud of. The celebration was intimate. Close family and friends who'd supported the transformation. People who'd believed change was possible. Elena pulled me aside during the party. "Thank you," she said simply, "for saving my son. For giving him the courage to become who he was meant to be instead of who his father wanted him to be." "I didn't save him," I protested. "He saved himself. I just refused to let him quit." "That's the same thing." She smiled. "You gave him what he needed most. Someone who believed in who he could become instead of accepting who he was. That's a gift beyond measure." "He gave me something too," I admitted. "Proof that transformation is real. That people can fundamentally change if they want it badly enough. That's changed everything about how I see the world." "What will you do now?" Elena asked. "Now that your FBI career is over and Victor's transformation is complete?" "We're building something new," I said. "A foundation supporting people trying to exit organized crime. Using Victor's experience and my psychological training to create programs that actually work. Making sure others don't have to navigate this transformation alone the way Victor did." "That's beautiful." Elena's eyes were warm. "Using your pain to help others. That's the best kind of redemption." Later that night, after everyone had left, Victor found me on the terrace overlooking the estate. "You did it," I said as he wrapped his arms around me. "Actually completed the transformation. Became exactly who you wanted to be." "We did it," he corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." your challenges, your support, your absolute refusal to let me settle for being less than I was capable of. You made this possible, Harper. You made yourself possible. I turned in his arms. I just reminded you that you could. But all the hard work, all the sacrifices, all the difficult choices, that was you. Be proud of that. I am, he said quietly. For the first time in my life, I'm actually proud of who I am. Not ashamed, not conflicted, just proud. And that's because of you. He pulled out a ring box then, the same one I'd seen him looking at for weeks. I know your career is complicated. I know the FBI investigation isn't over. I know there are still legal questions about everything that's happened. He opened the box. But Harper Wells, will you marry me anyway? Will you take a chance on a former criminal who spent 2 years proving he could become someone different, someone worthy of you? I looked at the ring, at this man who'd started as my investigation target and become everything, who'd fought impossible odds to transform completely, who'd proven that redemption wasn't just theory, but lived reality. Yes, I said through tears. Yes, I'll marry you. But Victor, you were always worthy. You just needed someone to demand you prove it to yourself. We got married 3 months later. Small ceremony, close family and friends. Nothing like the elaborate events his organization used to throw. Anastasia was my maid of honor. She'd graduated with honors and was studying psychology at Columbia, inspired by our lessons and everything she'd witnessed during Victor's transformation. You changed everything, she told me as we prepared for the ceremony. Not just for Victor, for all of us. You showed us that we don't have to be what we were born into, that we can choose who we become. That's a gift I'll carry forever. You would have figured that out on your own, I said. You're brilliant and determined. You were always going to forge your own path. Maybe. She smiled. But you made it easier, made it seem possible instead of just theoretical. Thank you for that. And thank you for loving my brother enough to help him become who he was meant to be. The ceremony was perfect, simple, honest. A celebration of transformation and new beginnings rather than just a wedding. Victor's vows made me cry. I was lost before you, he said, holding my hands, trapped in a life I never chose, becoming someone I hated, seeing no way out. You showed me that change was possible, that I could become someone different. That redemption wasn't just a concept, but a reality I could live. You made me brave enough to try, strong enough to finish, better than I ever thought I could be. And I promise to spend the rest of my life proving that your faith wasn't misplaced, that I can be the person you saw in me before I could see it myself. I love you, Harper. Completely. Forever. Thank you for saving me. My vows were simpler but just as true. You saved yourself, I said. I just refused to let you quit. But Victor, you did the impossible. Fought your way out of a life that trapped you. Became someone completely different through sheer will and determination. You proved that people can change fundamentally. That redemption is real. And loving you, watching you transform, being part of that journey, it's been the honor of my life. I love you. And I can't wait to see what we build together. 5 years after I'd walked into the Constantine estate pretending to be poor and naive, we stood together at a conference where Victor was speaking about criminal reformation. The Constantine Foundation had helped over 1,500 people exit organized crime by then, provided counseling, job training, legal support, built a comprehensive model for reformation that was being studied internationally. Victor had become an advocate for criminal justice reform, speaking publicly about his experience, working with lawmakers, proving through his own transformation that change was possible. I'd regained my license after 3 years and started a specialized practice helping people transition out of criminal life, using everything I'd learned to make real differences instead of just documenting problems. Do you ever regret it? I asked as we watched people respond to Victor's speech. Everything you gave up, the power, the wealth, the identity you were raised to have? Never, he said without hesitation. I regret not having the courage to leave sooner, but the actual leaving, the transformation, never. This life is better, being legitimate, being with you, being someone I actually respect when I look in the mirror. This is everything I wanted but didn't think I could have. I'm proud of you. I leaned against him. For doing the impossible. For proving that fundamental change is real. For becoming exactly who you were meant to be. I'm proud of us, he corrected. For building this despite every obstacle. For proving that sometimes the most important work isn't investigation or prosecution, but actually helping people transform. For showing that love and belief can motivate impossible change. 10 years after I'd begun my infiltration, the Constantine Foundation had helped over 3,000 people exit organized crime. The model we'd built was being replicated in 6 countries. Universities were teaching courses based on our approach. Lives were being changed systematically. Victor had completely rebuilt his family's legacy. Where his father had created fear, Victor created hope. Where his father had hurt people, Victor helped them. The Constantine name meant something completely different now, and through it all, we built a life together. Had children who would never know the weight of criminal legacy. Created a family that proved you weren't defined by where you came from, but by who you chose to become. Tell us the story again, our daughter asked one evening. About how you met. I was undercover, I said, smiling at Victor. Pretending to be someone I wasn't to infiltrate your father's organization. And I knew from the first moment, Victor added, but I was curious to see what she'd discover. Whether she'd see me as just a criminal or as someone trying to be more. She saw someone worth saving, our son said. No, I corrected gently. I saw someone saving himself. I just refused to let him quit when it got hard. The courage, the determination, the willingness to sacrifice everything for ethics, that was all him. But you helped, our daughter insisted. We helped each other. Victor pulled me close. That's what love is. Seeing the best in each other, demanding we live up to it, refusing to let each other settle for being less than we're capable of. That night, after the kids were asleep, Victor found me on our balcony. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For pretending to be poor and naive all those years ago. For infiltrating my life. For seeing past what I was to who I could become. He wrapped his arms around me. For being brave enough to believe in transformation even when all your training said not to. For choosing me despite every logical reason not to. For helping me become someone worth choosing. You were always worth choosing. I turned in his arms. You just needed to believe it, and I'm glad I was there to help you see it. I love you, he said simply. More than I thought it was possible to love anyone. You changed my entire life, made me someone I can actually be proud of. That's a gift I can never repay. You don't need to repay it. I smiled. Just keep being who you've become. Keep helping others transform the way you did. Keep proving that redemption is real and possible and worth fighting for. That's all the payment I need. And standing there, 10 years after I'd walked into his home in thrift store clothes carrying a fake identity, I knew something absolutely. That infiltration had changed both our lives forever. Not because it led to arrest or prosecution or any of the outcomes the FBI had wanted, but because it led to transformation. Real, complete, fundamental transformation. Proof that people could change if they had the right support and motivation. Proof that redemption wasn't just a beautiful theory but a lived reality. Victor had been a criminal. Someone born into an empire he never chose. Someone expected to be ruthless and cold, but he'd become someone extraordinary. Someone who'd fought impossible odds to transform completely. Someone who used his experience to help others escape the life he'd left behind. And I'd been an FBI agent. Someone trained to investigate and document and maintain distance. But I'd become someone different too. Someone who believed in redemption more than punishment. In transformation more than incarceration. In the power of genuine belief to create fundamental change. All because I'd pretended to be poor and naive to infiltrate a crime family. All because the mafia boss I'd been investigating turned out to be someone who'd been waiting for permission to change. All because sometimes the most important discoveries aren't the ones you're looking for, but the ones that find you when you're brave enough to look beyond the surface and see the person someone is truly trying to become. If you made it to the end of Harper and Victor's incredible journey from investigator and target to partners in transformation, smash that like button right now. Tell me in the comments, do you believe people can really change this completely? Should Harper have stayed with the FBI or was choosing Victor the right call? Then you need to subscribe to this channel immediately. Hit that notification bell and turn on all notifications so you never miss another story about redemption, transformation, and love that breaks all the rules. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next story. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and turn on that bell. See you soon. Claude é uma IA e pode cometer erros. Por favor, verifique as respostas. Sone 4.5 Claude é uma IA e pode cometer erros. Por favor, verifique as respostas.